Hello and welcome to our webcast for March 13, 2020. My name is Tristan and this is Amy Asbook, the director of Toujours Vivant, not
There,
dead
you
yet.
can see that right there.
Okay. Also joining us, this is Taylor Hyatt. This one there, here. Okay, our policy alliance and outreach coordinator. Toujours Vivant, not dead yet, is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. We believe that the choice to die is not free as long as old, ill, and disabled people don't have a free choice in where and how they live, and that must change. Today's topic: no free choice. Tristan Lederman and Tyler Findlay. Registration ban attached shock device. It's in US, USA. Please.
Okay, so our first topic, there's no free choice to die. Tristan Lederman and Tyler Findlay. This week we're looking at how the parents of some disabled adults are seeking the right to request euthanasia on their behalf.
On their behalf, not talk themselves.
So they're not asking for it, it's the parents that are asking for it.
That's really awful.
Right. Like Robert Latimer, these families cite the ill health and quote unquote suffering of their disabled relatives as the reason euthanasia is needed. However, media stories about these situations raise the same concerns about portrayal of disability and access to palliative and care and adequate treatment that we've talked about over the past few weeks. So, the first one, in October of 2017, 32-year-old Tristan Lederman died from an undiagnosed illness, as reported on the CBC radio program White Coat, Black Art. Like Tracy Lederman, Mr. Lederman is described only in terms of his medical condition and limitations. He, quote, was born with born hydrocephalic and had cerebral palsy. He could not see, walk, or do anything by himself, relying on his parents and at-home caregivers for all his needs. But like a lot of other young adults with extraordinary medical needs, his health took a turn for the worse. Taylor?
You want to say something, Taylor?
We can hear you clicking, but we can't hear you speaking.
So one click, no speaking. We're continuing.
Okay.
She would not be able to talk.
There is no mention of his skills, interests, personality, accomplishments, and contributions to his family and community. The journalist also fails to explore what supports might have enabled him to live independently.
Maybe I should try to click on it, Taylor. No,
that doesn't.
No,
it
doesn't make anything.
That doesn't make a difference. Okay.
Maybe the ear.
No. Je pas avec.
No. Okay.
Je pas avec. The word needs is used 6 times in the article to describe people with disabilities. The reporter highlights the link between disability and illness, thus maintaining the medical model of disability. I have to let the cat in because she's...
Okay. A future cat video. Just wait a few seconds.
And there she goes.
I mean, catch a cat.
Yeah. Meow. Okay.
Yeah.
In early 19... In early 2017, Mr. Lederman developed rashes, seizures, fatigue, pain, and loss of appetite. When doctors were unable to provide a diagnosis, his family came to believe that he was dying. The reporter quotes his mother saying, quote, "I think Tristan was trying to tell us that he was on his way out," unquote. Mr. Lederman's parents also felt he received inadequate pain management, saying he, quote, "was constantly moaning and in pain," unquote. He finally received a pump to administer pain medication shortly before he died.
You know what you do, moaning and crying, it's because you are suffering.
Right.
And if you are suffering, it's because somebody don't do his job.
Right, exactly. Yeah. The journalist, let's see, the journalist did not ask the question, excuse me. The journalist does not question the family's conclusion that Mr. Lederman's unusual symptoms meant that he was dying. So there were these unusual symptoms, but instead of investigating what illness or, I'm sure they investigated some, but I think there was an assumption at some point that, well, he's just disabled people, they often get sick and die. So just,
And they don't even try to care something.
We don't know what happened, but the journalist did not question the family's conclusion that Mr. Lederman's unusual symptoms meant his mother's statement to the effect that Mr. Lederman was aware he was dying in support of this conclusion.
Yeah, our mother, his mother said that, not himself.
Right, right. The way the article is written, the problem is presented as the doctor's inability to determine the cause of death. But the real problem, as far as we're concerned, is that the doctors didn't diagnose and treat a potentially curable illness which might have prevented his death. Another couple, Lynn and Dave Findlay, are hoping that the eligibility criteria for euthanasia will someday expand to include requests submitted by substitute decision makers. Their 25-year-old son, Tyler, died in 2019 after his parents decided against allowing surgery to repair a section of his bowel. Again, the article is written from the point of view of the family and mostly defines a disabled man by his limitations. Quote, Tyler had never been able to communicate and needed full-time care for most of his life. Maybe he couldn't speak in words, but everybody can communicate.
I agree. Everybody could communicate.
Right.
One way or another. Even this beast that I have in my hand here
she
is able to
her
communicate.
Desire to come in by scratching the screen. Okay. The reporter adds one anecdote about Mr. Findlay's non-compliant behavior as a humorous aside. Having made the tough decision, quote unquote, to not treat his condition, Mr. Findlay's parents asked whether he could have, quote, some medication for him to go to sleep, unquote. The doctor said no, and then when asked what would happen next, explained that Mr. Findlay would die within hours or days. Mr. Findlay died 9 days later.
He was not dying. He was sick, and nobody tried to treat one way or another.
Right.
And they let them to die.
Right. His family described his death as lacking compassion and dignity.
Oh, yeah, I agree. It's lack of compassion.
Taylor, do you want to jump in?
We heard you.
We heard you laugh. Nope. Okay. The refusal to consent to life-saving surgery for Tyler Findlay and the failure to pursue diagnosis and treatment for Tristan Lederman's illness stem from the same better dead than disabled mindset that animated the broad public support for Robert Latimer when he murdered his daughter, Tracy. As long as journalists, the families, politicians, and the public view disabled lives as less than fully and equally worth living, our choice of where, how, and even if we live will be limited by private decisions and public policies. So our second topic is the US Food and Drug Administration bans attached shock devices.
That's cruel. That's a torture.
Right. The shock devices are a torture. The ban is not a torture.
No.
The ban is a success. On March 4th, the US Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, published a final rule banning the use of electric shock devices worn by residents to prevent them from engaging in, quote, self-injurious or aggressive behavior, unquote. And these are devices, they have electrodes that are put at various parts of the body, and the person wears a receiver on their belt. And the staff have a keypad, and they can push a button, and it shocks the person.
Do you remember The Simpsons?
Yeah. Simpsons episode very early in The Simpsons where they're in the therapy session and they all have things to shock each other, and they
shock themselves, each other
right.
so far that the
it brings down the electrical grid in the town. So, okay. The FDA is allowing a 6-month, quote, transition physician-directed. Facilities must stop using the device on all other clients when the bill comes into effect in 30 days. So if the person has a behavior plan that's signed by a doctor, then they have 6 months to transition away from using this torture device. Otherwise, they have to stop using it within a month.
The ban is a good idea.
Yes. Yep. And we actually got that. We heard it. Yay! A federal regulation banning electric shock devices was originally proposed in 2016. Only one American institution still uses them, the Judge Rottenberg Center, or JRC, in Canton, Massachusetts. According to the FDA, about 50 people are, quote, currently being exposed, which is a really weird way of saying that. Disability rights activists in Massachusetts have been trying to ban the use of shock devices for more than 30 years.
30 years?
Yes, I remember going to the State House to testify at hearings on this, and seeing the school buses of parents that the JRC management brought in to testify in favor of the devices. It was horrible. The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, which joined the effort in 2009, released a statement responding to the news, and I put in a link to the piece that we did on this topic in 2018, and also to the statement that the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network released. We are relieved beyond measure that soon our community members will no longer be punished with dangerous electric shocks for doing things like standing up without permission, making noise, or crying in pain. This ban is long overdue.
Those devices are like devices that we use for training dog not to bark, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's cruel.
Right.
Even for dogs, it's not recommended at all.
Right. Exactly. Above all, we are grateful to the survivors of the Judge Rottenberg Center. Without their advocacy, testimony, and evidence they brought forward, publicly and privately, these regulations would not have been finalized. And it's true, it was only because people spoke out after they were released from the Judge Rottenberg Center, i.e. moved into the community, and told their stories about what happened to them, that the public finally decided to believe that this was actually happening. Although this ban is a huge victory, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network notes that their work is far from over. Quote, the JRC will almost certainly sue to delay or prevent the ban's implementation. We must stay in the fight or risk ending up back where we started. And while the JRC will be forbidden from using electric shock devices, it is still allowed to use other forms of torture and abuse, including starving its residents as a means of punishment and to control behavior. So it's good that the ban was adopted. Hopefully they won't get anywhere in their efforts to prevent it from being implemented, and we'll see. Okay, if you have any questions or want more information about the subjects that we discuss here, you can visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet, all one word. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping
Thank you,
out.
Amy.
Thanks also to Taylor, and we will
And
see
thank you, Ayo.
you.
Yo.
Obi.
Input, output.
That's Obi. See you next time.
Bye.